I'm Maggie Bell, Assistant Curator at the Norton Simon Museum, and I'm thrilled to introduce you to the exhibition, The Expressive Body, Memory, Devotion, Desire. This exhibition explores how meaning is created by being physically present with a work of art, specifically representations of the human body. The show explores this theme historically in Europe and in Latin America in the early modern period, or the centuries after the Middle Ages and into the mid-18th century. There was a kind of permeability between the physical body of the viewer and these represented bodies. And this was in part due to the fact that none of the images or works in this exhibition were meant to be seen in a museum. All of them would have been found in multisensory environments, walking down garden paths, in churches filled with incense and music, in ballrooms, in collectors' studios where visitors would have been encouraged to pick up and touch these works. So viewers at the time, or I would say experiencers at the time, would have engaged with these works with their entire bodies. The exhibition starts off with a section called The Body and the Senses as a way of orienting us towards the cultural framework of the five senses in this period. The senses were ranked from what was considered to be the most rational, objective, scientific sense of sight to the most subjective, potentially tempting, and sensual sense of touch. Of course, in practice, this ranking, this hierarchy was meaningless. These works were experienced with all five senses, touching, looking, smelling, that really gave life to these objects. This painting by Giuseppe de Ribera was part of a series of 5 paintings depicting each of the 5 senses. In this one, which depicts the sense of touch, a man with low vision cradles a marble bust in his left hand. He uses his right hand to carefully perceive the contours and texture of the profile of the figure. The painting is divided by this shadow that descends from the left corner, dividing the stone face from the flesh and blood face of the man. The artist is making an argument here that as a painter, he's able to replicate naturalistically both the texture of the stone and the texture of skin. In a way, it's an argument for the virtuosity of painting and privileges the sense of sight as a way of engaging with works of art. But at the same time, and I think most importantly in this case, this painting also shows touch as an intellectual sense, as a meaningful and equally important way to understand a work of sculpture. Even though sculptures can't be touched in museums today, this Flemish bronze Venus absolutely would have been in her original context. Works like this would have been appreciated as much for their visual form as for their tactile qualities. Visitors to the collector's studio would have been encouraged to run their fingers over the bronze as a way of understanding her elongated, unusual form. We can see in this painting by Titian of Jacopo della Strada, an important antiquarian, how a collector might have caressed an object like this. And we can even see in the discolorations and the variation in color in the patina on this sculpture where over time people may have touched the various surfaces. The second section, Love, Lust, and Suffering, addresses the ways in which depictions of the nude body, specifically bodies of women, could incite feelings of desire or lust that had different functions within the patriarchal structures of the period. This biblical story of Susanna and the elders, depicted so beautifully by Jan Masis, shows the lovely, chaste, pure Susanna preparing for her bath, wrapped in this luxurious fur gold robe. She sends her handmaidens away, and behind her are two respected elders from her community, who, in seeing her body, lose all sense of reason and plot to seduce her. This doesn't work out, and ultimately the elders are exposed for their lies. The function of this painting at the time would have been a complex one, especially for male viewers. Susanna's nude body, idealized body, would have immediately attracted the viewer's attention and perhaps aroused the same feelings of desire that the elders experienced. But looking immediately to the left, the desiring, conspiring gaze of these elders would have reminded the viewer of their own, casting them in the position of a voyeur and asking them to reevaluate their own feelings in the context of Christian morality. This section of the exhibition, which I call Accessing the Divine, is about the ways in which depictions of divine bodies allowed devout viewers to connect in physical ways to the experiences of these holy figures. This painting of a French abbess of the Trinitarian order really exemplifies how works of art would have been used in her devotional practice. And I absolutely love her expression. It's so much fun to put this painting in the galleries. It's never been on view before. And she has such a knowing expression. It's as if you can really get a sense of her personality. And she's pointing so directly at this human skull on the table as a reminder of the inevitability of death. But importantly, above this skull is a small carving of the crucified Christ. And what's interesting, what's possible in this painting is to show that this little figure is somewhere between a representation and a living being. He's got these bright white eyes that look towards heaven as a kind of reminder of the fact that devotion to Christ is a way of superseding death. This little wooden crucifix from the territory now known as New Mexico was another object that I was so excited to put in the galleries. This would have been an object that was used daily. It would have been in someone's home, hung on the wall, perhaps something that someone would have held in their hands. And one of the things that I think is the most fascinating about this crucifix is that the way it was made would have been a kind of act of devotion as well. The figure of Christ is carved separately from the crucifix. And in mimicking the story of the crucifixion, it's actually adhered to the cross through small wooden pegs driven through the hands and feet. So the artist may have been actually thinking about the story of the crucifixion as they were making this object. The left hand of the figure of Christ is attached to the cross now with a little wire wrapping, which may have been a repair that was made while it was a private devotional object before it came into the collection. And so we decided to keep it as an important aspect of the life of this object. This polychrome sculpture of Christ, meaning the painted wooden sculpture, was possibly made in Spain and imported to Mexico, also very possibly made in Mexico in the 18th century. And it's a typical example of the kind of hyper-realistic representations of suffering in this period, not only stylistically, but also in terms of material. So the teeth in the open mouth of Christ were made of bone. His eyes are made of glass, which give them this kind of lifelike translucence. And originally there would have been resin tears running down his cheeks that would have stood out in 3 dimensions and also been clear and translucent, giving the effect of actual tears. I have to say, being face to face with this sculpture in the vault, just alone with this work, is pretty intense. It's like looking into the face of another human being, which would have been the intention at the time, to allow devout viewers to really put themselves in the position of suffering Christ. These types of depictions of the suffering Christ, known as the Man of Sorrows, occupied a really complicated place in the visual culture of so-called New Spain. Catholic missionaries brought this kind of image with them to preach compassion for Christ's suffering. But at the same time, these same missionaries were exercising really brutal tactics of conversion imposed on indigenous people. Not all images of holy figures focused on doom and gloom and suffering. Many, especially in representations of the Holy Family or of the Virgin Mary and Christ as an infant, emphasize familial love through gestures that would have been recognizable to parents everywhere. Here in this relief, this terracotta relief made after an original by Donatello, the Virgin Mary caresses her infant close to her chest, clasping him against her face. His chubby cheeks are squished up against hers, and her elongated fingers press him close to her chest. She seems a little distant. She has a almost pensive, potentially sorrowful look on her face, as if she can look forward to the ultimate suffering and death of her son. But very sweetly, the baby is absolutely in this moment. He's chewing on his little fingers, seemingly totally unaware of the events to come. The original version of this relief is still fixed to a building corner on a street in Verona. It's an object, it's an image that people see every day. It would be surrounded by chatter, street sounds, and would be a moment of reflection in someone's busy day, looking up and contemplating this very recognizable gesture of familial love. My hope in visiting the Expressive Body is that viewers will reconnect with what it means to be engaging with art in a physical way. I think the exhibition gives historical context to the ways in which the body can create meaning in different realms of human experience: erotic, devotional, familial. But I also hope that visitors can take that historical knowledge and apply it to their own experiences now, maybe encouraging visitors to gain an awareness of their own physical responses to works of art in this exhibition and beyond.